Today on Airball.com videos, the top 5 GM jobs in the NBA. My name is Will Baldwin. Let's get started. Let's start it off with the honorable mentions. Our first honorable mention is the Los Angeles Lakers. The reason the Lakers didn't make the list is pretty simple. Despite all the things they have going for them, from location to relatively strong roster to Anthony Davis's age, the reality is they only have one guard on the roster officially, and it's LeBron. And LeBron is in his mid-30s, and the reality is he's eventually going to slow down, and because of that, I just can't have them any higher than 6 through 10. I haven't really thought about the honorable mention order, but they definitely are not in the top 5 just because of LeBron's age and the reality of this salary cap situation. Our next honorable mention is the Milwaukee Bucks. The reality with them is if Giannis leaves, they're screwed. I know Chris Middleton's contract looks better with his 50-40-90 basically season, and Bledsoe was great this year. And just the reality of that supporting cast and Coach Bud, they have a lot of things going for them. But if Giannis leaves, they're in trouble. And just due to that alone, I can't have them any higher than 6 through 10 like the Lakers. That one little issue you're going to see with the top 5, it's going to separate people. And the Bucks really do have a major issue with Giannis's contract and the uncertainty surrounding their franchise player. Next honorable mention is the Raptors. The reality of the Raptors is their best player, Siakam, is probably a 2 on a championship team, which immediately hurts you in getting into the top 5. All the teams in the top 5 have a championship level first option, and I don't think Siakam projects that high. Now, who knows with him? He continuously gets better when we don't expect it, so maybe he is going to get to the level of a first option, but as of right now, I just can't see him being the first option on a championship team. This is also ignoring the fact that Nick Nurse is a free agent at the end of next season, and the reality that Serge, Mark, Fred, and a series of other integral Raptors could be on the move in the next year and a half. So because of that, they can't make the top 5. The next one, Brooklyn Nets. And the reason Brooklyn doesn't get in is pretty simple: health. If I knew Kevin Durant was going to be a top 5 player, they would be on the list. Like, I'm sorry people, but Kevin Durant, when he was that good, he would immediately make any team a top 5 job. Just having the reality of being able to build around Kevin Durant makes it a top 5 job wherever he is in his prime. But the Achilles, it's just too big of an injury to look past. So until we see Kevin Durant, I can't have them any higher, and they don't have a coach, which, again, another difficult tiebreaker. And the final honorable mention of the 6 through 10 is the New Orleans Pelicans. The reason the Pelicans don't crack the top 5, despite the series of amazing assets that they have, is Zion's health. Until we know for sure that Zion can remain healthy for an entire season and withstand the blows, and I think I just need to see him lose some weight, and I need to see a little bit more how he fits with Ingram. They started to figure it out in the last 5 or so games, but I need to see a bigger sample size because I'm not 100% sure they can play together for a long term. But I mean, if those are the only 2 major issues other than your market, I mean, how good is New Orleans going to be for a free agent destination? And I'm not a huge fan of the coach, but otherwise the Pelicans' future is bright, and they definitely deserve to be mentioned in the top 10 for sure. So, with that being said, let's get into the top 5. The 5th best GM job that you could have, and if they offered it to me, they never would because I didn't play there, is the Boston Celtics. Now, a lot of people are going to be bothered by Boston being this high because for as many Boston Celtic fans there are on the internet, there are probably twice as many haters of the organization, and I mean rightfully so. Most championships, obnoxious organization at times, obnoxious fans at times, questionable star players, all of that. But here's the thing. The biggest criticisms you have on the Boston Celtics are, A, they're not a great free agent destination. And let's discount that right away. They've brought in Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, and Kemba Walker. All high-level free agents with different destination options. Gordon Hayward chose Boston over Miami. Now, some people may choose that to being Brad Stevens, but the reality is Gordon Hayward, as an all-star, chose the Boston Celtics. So did Kemba Walker, and so did Al Horford. Because of those three facts alone, I don't think we can discount Boston as being the anti-free agent destination so many people think it is. So, if Boston is at worst an even free agent destination, that means they have an elite head coach, a star player who is 22 years old, a second star player who's 23 years old, and a series of assets. Yes, please, I will take that job. Sure, there's issues with Kemba and his health, and the reality that they're not really sure what to do with the Hayward, Brown, Tatum rotation. But the sky is the limit for Tatum at this point. I mean, he's a top 15 player in the NBA at 22 years old. Anytime I can look at that and realize that he's 4 years younger than Pascal Siakam and he's my best player, that's a huge bonus if you're a Boston Celtic fan. And we have Kemba Walker and Jaylen Brown, and that's not even counting Marcus Smart, who might have the best contract in the league for what he offers, especially now that he's an league average or slightly above three-point shooter. This is an elite roster, a solid location, and a great coaching staff. And they're probably 2 or 3 moves from being the championship team that we thought they would be back when they pulled off the Brooklyn Nets trick. So because of that, I think the Boston Celtics have to be, at the very worst, the 5th best NBA GM job right now. The 4th best NBA GM job is the other team in Los Angeles, the Clippers. Now, this is actually a pretty easy selection for me. The reality is a lot of people are questioning the Clippers and their future assets because people, for some reason, keep pointing out that Kawhi and Paul George can opt out after next season. And although that should be concerning to an extent, especially with Kawhi Leonard, their best player, I don't really understand why him opting out is seen as a significant issue when the reality is we just saw him courted for an entire offseason. And from all information that came out, he was only going to go to Los Angeles. So what is their only competition, the Lakers? He just said no to the Lakers. So the reality is Kawhi isn't going anywhere. Everyone who keeps talking about they might lose Kawhi Leonard is completely wrong. Where is he gonna go? He wants to be in LA. He spent 2 years of his life trying to get from San Antonio to LA. Of course he is going to stay there. He made it. This is the destination. He's not going anywhere. The same can arguably be said for Paul George. Once the OKC thing flamed up, he wants to be in LA. Where is he gonna go? The Lakers? Paul George is a little bit more of a wild card, but the reality is if you're Paul George, where are you gonna find a better first option teammate than Kawhi Leonard to build around? Sure, Kawhi has some slight injury concerns, but if you're Paul George, where are you going? So I think those two are locked in for years despite their contracts, and I think what we learned with those contracts is it's just them trying to get to their 10th year in the league so they can get the max level 5-year extension and get as much money as possible. I think that's what they were trying to do. And everyone's going to try and point out that they might leave. I think they're just trying to get the most money possible, which if you're Kawhi and Paul, I totally respect that and understand that situation. Also, what the Clippers have going for them is Doc Rivers is an outstanding head coach that any team would want. Finally, I mean, with guys like Shamet, they have a couple trade pieces and Zubac where I think they can slightly upgrade the roster. I'd like to see them get a more switchable big because I'm not a huge fan of playing Trez down the stretch of a big game. I don't think he can guard Anthony Davis for 7 games in a playoff series. And I think they need to upgrade the point guard position because I just don't see a way Patrick Beverley is the starter on a championship team. I think he has flashes, but he just doesn't make his shots consistently enough. And I think with the elite defensive play you get from Paul and Kawhi, you don't necessarily need him as much. So I'd like to see them upgrade that position slightly. Otherwise, though, the Clippers is an elite job. The number 3 job, this one should be unanimous. The Miami Heat. Let's be honest here. Free agent destination, check. Head coach, check. Young roster with plenty of assets to go get the next guy who's pissed at his team, check. What else could you want from an organization in being a general manager than what the Miami Heat have to offer? They have Jimmy Butler, who, although had a down shooting season, has at least 2 or 3 years left. Then you got Bam Adebayo, who is in the absolute running for most improved. And you have a series of young assets from Tyler Hero to Kendrick Nunn that can definitely help you either A, continue to build within, or allow you to go trade for a guy like Bradley Beal, or maybe even a Karl Anthony Towns if he gets upset. The Heat are perfectly positioned to either bring someone in 21 or trade for someone. And I don't think we can discount the fact that with Pat Riley and his ability to not be afraid, that if you're going to let me take this job, I'm not going to be afraid either. And with the assets we have, man, we're going to have fun in Miami and we're going to bring a title there, because Spo is that good of a coach that all I have to do is bring in probably one more star player to get me over the top in the Eastern Conference. And let's be honest here, great ownership, great destination. This is an elite job. I know people don't want to hear it. The Miami Heat, the Heat culture, is the third best general manager job in the NBA. The number 2 job. Now this season hasn't gone according to plan. Well, I guess it kind of has gone according to plan, because once Steph Curry went down, the Golden State Warriors' plan was to suck, and boy did they suck this year. And the reality is they're going to get a top 5 pick at worst. With that top 5 pick, they're going to generate an asset with the Andre Iguodala trade exception that they can go get out and get an elite star player. The Golden State Warriors are not going anywhere. Steph Curry has the type of game that's going to age nicely. I know Klay is coming off a serious torn ACL, but the reality is with Klay's game is that if anyone is going to translate off a torn ACL, it's Klay Thompson. He doesn't exactly have the change of direction game that a Derrick Rose who struggled to come off it does. He's a much more vertical rather than horizontal player in terms of straight line player instead of kind of side shifty, which is where the change of direction issues come in a knee injury like that. So because of that, Klay is going to translate very well. And even if he's a slightly worse defender, so if he goes from an A+ to an A, those are still 2 elite assets. I think Wiggins has potential as a third option on this team. And then Draymond, I would say, has at least 2 years left as a solid role player. So there's 4 building blocks right there. We have the draft asset that I just said. We have the Iguodala trade exception. And if Minnesota sucks next year, we're going to get a top 10 pick because they didn't protect that pick very well. So the sky is kind of the limit for the Golden State Warriors in terms of the trade they can pull off. Don't be surprised if they go out and get the next star player who hates where they are. Let's be honest here, this is the NBA. Some random guy is going to be available. We just saw it, we're seeing it in Utah right now. Who would have ever thought that Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell wouldn't get along? But here we are. One of them might be available. And we have an elite coach, an owner who's willing to spend basically an unlimited amount of money, brand new arena, elite free agent destination, top 3 assets minimum in the league to go get a player. I mean, how can the Golden State Warriors not be a top 2 or 3 job in the NBA right now? And the number 1 job in the NBA. This one is obvious, I think, and the reason is because elite ownership, elite head coach, free agent destination, and an A++ building block in Luka Doncic. That's right, the Dallas Mavericks are the number 1 general manager job you could want in the NBA right now. You got Luka, you got Kristaps, both under 25 years old. And I know you don't have the draft capital that you'd necessarily want, but hey, we got Luka Doncic. We got the kind of guy who everyone's gonna want to play with. All the talk over the years about why you'd want to play with LeBron, all of that remains true for a Luka Doncic. And we have an elite head coach. We're in a state with no income tax. And we got Mark Cuban, one of the best owners in the league. Sure, he was kind of weird when he came in. Now though, he's as highly thought of as any NBA owner. That is as good of a portfolio for being an elite franchise as a general manager that you can find in the league. Trust me. Golden State, they have some issues. Their best players are older. Boston, free agent destination weaker. Luka is a better player than Tatum. Brooklyn, KD's injury, LA, like all these comparisons, it's clear Dallas is the best GM job right now. You have a top 10 player at worst who is 21 years old. Say that again. Luka is 21 years old and he's your best player and he's a top 10 player in the league already. He's going to get better. Your salary cap situation allows you to probably go get a max player before Luka signs in 21. Look at that. 3 players. I'm telling you, the Dallas Mavericks are here to stay. and they're clearly the #1 general manager job. Well, thanks for tuning in. That is the top 5 GM jobs in the NBA. My name is Will Baldwin. Make sure to check out everything else on airball.com.